Hello. Hi. And welcome to Feedback, episode 16. Today we're joined by site-specific public artist Mark Reigelman, who will be talking with us and composer David Bird about mediums. This is a piece that David wrote for Yarnwire, and it was featured on Yarnwire Current Volume 3 album. So please join us by also sending your questions to feedback@yarnwire.org or join the live chat on YouTube to submit questions in real time. We love to hear from you, so please give us your questions. We're so excited that you're both available to talk with us today. And now I will hand it to Mark.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Mark.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. Hi, David.
Hello.
So I was texting my mom before this because she's my only fan. And I said, Mom, you have to come to this interview. I'm talking with some musicians. I'll be interviewing them. And her response was, but why are you doing it? And I thought that was like totally spot on because I don't really fit in. So I wanted to give a little bit of background. Ning kind of chipped at it a little bit. I create site-specific public art, which means I get to go around the country and work with communities and try to develop and design site-specific engagements, public art, installations, architecture, playgrounds, all in hopes of creating environments for people to engage. And my relationship with public space is where, David, I think you and I start having some creative overlap. And Ning brought us together on a project called Echo Chamber, maybe a couple years ago. And I think she brought us together because we were both interested in public space and we use public space to inform our work. But our output is very, very different. And so we had a chance, the three of us had a chance to work together on a project called Echo Chamber. And I left feeling very excited by the collaboration. And it was my first kind of real dive into what new music could be and could offer. And I left very invigorated and excited. So that is my relationship to you and to new music. So I will definitely bring down the conversation that Yarnwire has been having over several weeks. But I guess my first question for you is, give us a little snapshot of David Bird. What are you doing? What are you up to? What are you all about?
Yeah, of course. Thank you Yarnwire, and thank you, Mark, for putting this on and asking me to be involved. I'm a composer, a producer as well. And I kind of come from, or I guess I kind of dabble into like multimedia work as well. I think this is something that really defines my output in a way. I kind of do this from a sound perspective. I think there's probably a lot to say regarding this that we'll get into. But I think if I could generalize some things, I think there are some recurring themes in my work. One involving an interest in technology and depicting relationships between performers and electronics as a way of calling attention to the relationships that we have with technology in our lives. And I think it's in moments like that, especially, that I rely a lot on visuals and lighting and other kind of cues, symbolic cues of drawing connections between things. And another big theme is space. Spatialized performance, performing in unconventional spaces.
And you're wearing your NASA shirt?
Oh yes, yeah, I forgot
So
about
outer
that.
space?
No, not there yet. They canceled the NASA artist residency program after Laurie Anderson.
No.
Maybe at one point they will start it again, and I would be first in line,
Yeah.
hopefully. But yeah, so I mean, balancing this interest between like technology and space, I think the piece that I did with Yarn Wire is like a great example of this, and just a great summation of those interests. So I think this is like, a kind of apt time and place to talk about our collaboration together, which was really fun.
So how did that, I mean, that's one of the questions that I have for you is Yarnwire has done a number of collaborations with a number of brilliant composers. Is there a swipe left app and that's how you guys meet up? Or how did two people that may be in similar worlds but not in the same orbit kind of find themselves together?
The app's called Timbre.
Timbre.
Very good.
Nice one, Ian.
Nice one.
You just gave away a multi-million-dollar.
I know, you better buy the website immediately.
Yeah. I think it started with like a cryptic email from Russell being like, "You want to get tacos one day?"
Oh, yeah,
And-
that's right.
He always starts his conversations like that.
Yeah, but it's routed through some thing, so you don't even know who it's coming from.
Right.
Yeah, so it started with a cryptic email and then cryptic tacos, and then I think it just started happening. This was a really amazing project to be involved with, this kind of Currents series. In this sequence of it had Mark Fell involved and Sam Pluta, two people who I really respected and admired. And I think at that point in my working and career, this was like a huge thing, and I was so excited to be involved in this. And I think it was in some of those early discussions as well that the group expressed an interest in doing something with video. And I had done little experiments with visual stuff prior to this point, usually just to demonstrate a concept or something. But this was really like my first big like dive into doing something with gathering a lot of video footage and putting together kind of a longer piece with imagery and stuff. And so it was an amazing opportunity, and also just amazing kind of opportunity to like push my own work and development out and collaborate with these amazing people to do that.
So let's, Rob, could we watch a clip for a clip of the performance for, I don't know, a couple minutes?
All right, it's coming our way.
It's really cool. It's really cool. So I guess my first thought is, Laura, has no one told you about sitting on the floor of subway platforms?
I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, I remember we were shooting that, and I was like, ugh, I really am gonna have to wash. Maybe I should just throw away these pants after.
Yeah, totally. So many things happened in that spot. So, David, there's a lot of things that I like. Again, I'm coming from with no new music background, and I've been to a number of performances where I just leave pretty confused. And I think I think the addition of image brought into the mix is a huge help in the average person getting a lot out of this experience. So I guess and the images are also beautiful that you're working with. What role does image play in your work? How important are they? How are you selecting them? Just what is that like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in a lot of ways, like maybe even to take a step back, I feel like just image has a really huge impact on all of our musical listening, whether or not we like consciously think about it or not. I think if we're listening to an album, I think the cover art has a big influence on what we listen to. If there's a music video, obviously those images kind of like linger in your mind after you listen to a piece. And also like a big thing that I really gravitate towards in performance, like live performance work, is just the physicality of the performance. And I think that's something that really inspires me. So I think just image is always there. And for me, I try to just kind of take advantage of that in a way in composing and just acknowledge that and try to work with that as an extension of what I would normally do as a composer. So I think I don't do a lot of really fancy stuff with visuals or really use them really abstractly that often. I usually use them to frame specific situations. So in this case, like framing a performer in a specific environment. I think that frame has a lot of power. If we were to have the group playing in a concert hall, I think that would suggest something very different from a performer playing outside. Little things like that. I think it communicates something different to your expected audience, to people who would experience this music for the first time. And I think you can do a lot. It opens the doors also temporally to a whole different experience with music. So yeah, image is a huge thing in my work. And then also I'm glad that you brought up the idea of, I guess like communication in art as well. I think in addition to thinking about the framing aspects of visuals and image, I think I can also demonstrate what's going on in just a communicative kind of way. And because I do a lot of work with technology, I feel like sometimes when we listen to like really techie works, you just have no idea what's going on. Like you don't know what sound is coming from what. And it's kind of just like overwhelming. And that could be really off-putting, I think, to someone who's engaging with this style of music for the first time. So I guess I like to use video and image also to just describe what's going on. And so in this case, we see the performers performing in these different environments. And, I think that's a nice kind of starting off point for exploring the ideas in this piece.
Well, performers aside, you are still selecting a pretty wide range of locations all over the city. And like logistically, what is that? What is your search criteria? So your criteria is, okay, I want public images from around the city. How do you begin that search? The city is huge. You find yourself in, I don't know, Central Park. You find yourself in Brooklyn Bridge Park, Roosevelt Island. I mean, these are pretty significant distances between them. How are you coming across these locations?
Well, yeah, you named a lot of them right there. I think I was looking really for contrast in imagery, and that was something that that's something that New York has a lot to offer. There are a lot of different environments in New York, and both sonic and visual. So this was something that I was really keen on trying to find, and so I just did a lot of exploring on my own. I tried to figure out, I really wanted to respect the time and talents of Laura and Ning in this case, and so I wanted to also set up situations where we could spend a day filming and go from one spot to the next. And so, we did one shoot in Brooklyn with Laura and then one shoot in Upper Manhattan with Ning, trying to hit as many spots that are as different as possible. that I researched in advance, and then showed up with the performers and we did our thing. So that's one thing. I think the locations were chosen, I think, out of contrast, sonically and visually. And I think I have some of these images for Rob to show, but around the time that I was working on this, I saw this movie by Roy Anderson, which is, I think, a pigeon sat on a branch reflecting on its existence. And this was something that Bernard Fastenfest, who also helped me filming on the location shoots with Ning and Laura, recommended to me. And just, it was in my head at the time, and it really set the stage for how I wanted to explore the presentation of the performers in this piece. And so in this film, Roy Anderson has these really beautiful shots where the camera is completely static the entire time, and it's very slow moving, but every single thing is in focus, and there's very small details of things happening in the background. So in a way, I tried to construct this a very similar presentation visually with the piece. And I think there's even a moment with Laura that's an exact reference to that one. I don't know if you could show the images back and forth. They're just very similar looking, that one and then the beach one from the film. And so yeah, this was something that was kind of also in my head about the composition of the shots.
Okay, so we're gonna dip our toes into sound here a little bit, and you're gonna have to ease me into it slowly. You've been to my studio a couple of times, so I've been able to see you work, and it's a mixture of DJ and scientist. There's a lot of wires. You have a Mac screen. There's things happening. There's a lot of weird noises coming out of the speakers you have kind of wired up all over the place. I was trying to work, and it was I was okay, David's making something beautiful.
That might have been maybe that was a mistake. I don't know.
Sounds like a glitch.
But at the same time, I would kind of peer over your shoulders, and there are some images, Rob, also of David doing some kind of test in the studio. I would peer over your shoulder, and your screen is also full of these really abstract, beautiful markings. And it just, I don't know, it's probably just some program you're using, but the combination of the two started making sense. For me, the sound alone, these screeches, cracks, clicks, I had a hard time appreciating them. But when I saw them in relationship to, this screen full of, beautiful geometry and graphs, I started getting excited. Can you talk about what you're trying to achieve with sound in general?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned all that stuff, because I remember walking into the studio with Ning, and I was so overwhelmed. Mark, you have an amazing artist studio with all of your projects on the walls. You have fabrications of projects in development and 3D printed stuff everywhere. And I was just completely wow, this is crazy. I think I kept on looking over at Ning, who was there, and I was this is insane. This is so cool. And so, I was in complete awe, and maybe trying to be a bit of an imposter with my own skill set when I was there. But we were there, testing tubes, aluminum and metal tubes for this project for Echo Chamber. And a lot of that project was about capturing the resonant qualities of these different tubes, and figuring out, okay, if we cut a tube this big, and if it's this big, what's the pitch going to be? And so I was trying to do some basic analysis of the spectral content of the tubes, and try to figure out okay, if we scale them at this interval, what tone is it going to produce, or what kind of quality will it have? And I was also trying out a lot of the sounds that I was already generating with Ning, and playing that through the tubes as well. And I think one of the things that whole process resembles in terms of my other work too is just an interest in kind of cataloging and testing, I guess. So I'm really interested in this idea of cataloging sounds and ideas, and trying to organize those thoughts in advance, and find points of contrast between materials and points of similarity, and try to, I guess, exploit contrast and similarity as much as possible. So yeah, I think it feels a lot mentally kind of like arranging your desktop on a computer, which I'm really bad at. If I had to flip the screen around and show you my screen, it would look like a mess. But artistically, I try to have really clear thoughts and ideas and try to gather things in like nice little compartments so I kind of know what can happen with them.
And can you talk specifically about some of the sounds that you created with this Mediums project, and and how that works with a group of people? Because suddenly you're with Yarnwire. I mean, does one have an idea for a really weird sound? Are you like, I have this idea for a really weird sound. Who knows how to make it? Is this how it? What is that experience like? What is that process?
Yeah, I mean, Yarnwire would know how to make all the weird sounds. So they might have already made all the weird sounds. So I don't think I could
There are
have
none
anything.
left.
There are none left. In fact, even when I was doing this piece and I thought I had, just, ideas that were fine, like, Laura would do something inside the piano that I'd never heard before. And it was just like, what? Like, it was something that I wrote, but she was just interpreting it and with so much, like, insight into, like, what you can do on that instrument that I left that experience being like, I want to work with you guys again. And I want to, like, there's so much more to dive into.
Okay, wait a second, but stop there, because I'm still not understanding. You wrote a thing, which is essentially a sound. So you're writing down a sound, correct?
Yeah.
And what? Laura then looks at the sound that you wrote and is like, I think what he's writing sounds like this.
Yep.
She's like, this is bad, but let me do this instead.
He wants X.
He wants X. I'm going to give him Y, and it's going to be better. No.
Okay, and what does that look like on paper? Does it look like this? Like, seriously, what are we looking? What is Laura looking at? Does it look like standard sheet music?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. In this piece, this was like one of the most like just simple, straightforward like scores that I've done probably to that point. Just because I knew it was going to synchronize with the video, and so it was a longer piece for me, and so it was a lot of and there was like, I was also trying to make room for the video too in the live performance. So there's a lot of like spatial things I think to consider with the arrangement of everything, but it was notated. Yeah.
Okay, and one last question just about this, because I want to make sure I have a clear understanding of how this happens. You have 4 sheets of music. Each one of the Yarnwire members gets a sheet. They interpret these scratches on paper, and then you all perform it together to see if that sound is what you want?
Yeah, basically. I mean,
That's
yeah, what do you...
rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
It's like you get it was like many other pieces that we have, in that we each got, like you said, Mark, we each got a part that's written for our specific instrument or collection of instruments. And then we rehearsed it just like, any other chamber piece that we'd done. And in the case of the strange sounds, I think that's where we worked with David. He might have written like, this thing happens here, like an event happens here, but then we might in rehearsal be like, hey, David, this sound, what if we replaced it with this, or what if we did this, and so we can interchange and explore what the actual resultant sound might be. And so there's flexibility in the final score, revisions happen and things like that. But he does give us a roadmap at the beginning, and then in a rehearsal process, we might change everything from dynamics and levels to like our balance to what we're actually playing.
Yeah, and there were a lot of elements in that process that were really exciting for me too. Like, I remember a moment when Ian was like, I want to try this cymbal instead. And that cymbal was like the most beautiful cymbal I'd ever heard in my life. And you don't really like think about that when you're writing a score sometimes. Like, I think sometimes I was just like, there needs to be a cymbal thing here, but this cymbal was just like so good. And there were other moments just like in the performance of everyone where there's these little things that felt so much more significant because you put your own like thought and perspective and history of performing this music into it. For this Mediums piece, I actually have a video that I would love to show, because I think that I've never showed any of the dry footage of the material that we got with Laura and Ning performing in different spaces. And it's something that I allude to a lot in the piece, but there's never really like a clear presentation of it without other stuff going on. And in terms of describing the sound creation in this piece, Mediums, I think this video could be a good demonstration of what's going on. So I don't know if Rob has the, I think it's like Mediums thing queued up. The what's happening here in the piece is that I have Laura and Ning, they have these little vocoder synthesizers. And a vocoder basically takes audio and then allows the performer to kind of filter that through pitched delays. And it basically allows you to play sound or play your environment through this instrument, or at least that's the way that I'm using it in this piece. And so I think we'll hear this in the video with Ning on sitting on a freeway, and there's cars going by, and she's like filtering the sounds of the cars. So I don't know. Yeah, if you have that available, we can play that.
Rob!
Chat feature right now.
I've never seen that, I have to say.
Me neither.
Me neither.
I thought,
Yeah.
Laura and Ning, you're just like messing around.
Yeah.
In the whole piece. I'm like, man, they're sitting there doing stuff, but you actually did. You played. I was like, I thought you've been posing this whole time for years. now.
Look at that. I used to be young and fearless and risk
I was just
my
thinking,
life
would you do
for
that?
arts, right?
Would you do this
Now
today?
you're old and
Oh
scared.
my God. I know. It's like, school buses and, sightseeing buses and cars.
That school bus was scary.
Yeah, school buses are very scary. Yeah, that was a moment. I think that was maybe the last thing that we did that day, and we were like a little bit tired, and I saw some like stuff like on the after a car would drive by, like some stuff like flying on the street behind you, and we're like, we have to stop this right now. This just felt a little bit dangerous. So we didn't get enough of that footage to actually use that shot. I think that was like the full amount of stuff that we got. It was one of my favorite scenes though, because you can really hear the way that the cars are like going by and activating what you're playing and how it's influencing what you're doing.
And so I saw you
Patreon
clapping. Was that
exclusive.
because you were telling yourself that you were doing a great job?
No, I was so nervous that day. I was just doing that to synchronize the cameras and the performance that Ning was doing on. There's like a laptop behind her. I like tried to angle it so you didn't see any of that stuff. But yeah, so I was just trying to synchronize the microphone and the laptop and the cameras with that.
Okay. And what's happening sonically in that scene? Like, what are you collecting? What is Ning and Laura doing? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, this might be another I don't know if there's an image of this, but there's an image of like the session of the computer that shows what I'm collecting from that instance. It's somewhere in the drive if Rob wants to bring it up. But and it's maybe not that one. I don't know what it would be, but maybe it would be, I don't know what it's called.
Here's your
Anyway,
working.
these are good too. These
You're
are like
working.
good. Describing
That was
like
it.
me at the computer with my hunch.
David at work.
David at work.
That was it.
But I was showing basically what I was capturing in that instance. There's a microphone going into a computer, and it's recording the raw notes that Ning is playing, as well as the sound of that environment. And that sound is the thing that's feeding Ning's instrument, the virtual instrument there, which is a vocoder. And it's it's just taking her performance is basically adding a pitched element to what's being fed through it. So I like to think about this in this piece, like Ning is kind of filtering her environment, or almost like using the instrument like a camera to show us specific things in her sonic environment that are interesting to her, and allowing us to like zoom in at these different moments or these different sounds, you know.
So what is she? But what is she playing? I mean, like, is she reading sheet music?
Oh no! In this part, she's improvising to, or she's channeling some like higher god or something, and she's playing just like things that Ning wants to play,
Fifths.
and in relationship to the space. I think I might have had some instructions like play a chord that fits the space, or improvise to the gestures of things that are happening in the space.
Okay, very cool. So in this instance, at least for Laura and Ning, the environment is directly influencing what they play. They can choose whatever they want to play, but they're responding to their surrounding environment. And you're taking that music and the sounds of the environment, filtering it in some way, and that becomes the actual the end output.
Yeah, pretty much. And in this case too, we also hear, I mixed in this example to show a little bit of the car sounds too, so you can hear how those are connected to what she's playing as well.
Because you use that in the piece too, right? Like there's a lot of car samples that end up like in the actual thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. How was that experience for Ning and Laura?
Yep.
Like, what was that like for you?
Well, I remember, I was actually thinking, I remember your instructions of like your guidelines, and you're like, play really slow moving chords. Like, they don't have to be like diatonic, but they could be, but they don't have to be. And so but I remember when we were recording, I don't think I could hear what I was creating for whatever reason. So it was also sort of just a tactile experience for me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do we have a question?
We do have a question, actually, if we can kind of interrupt.
It's from my mom.
Yes.
Well, so this is a question, I think, for David. And this is from Leslie, who asks, who are some of your musical influences?
I think this is my mom, maybe.
Is your mom named Leslie? Or
There's
is
only
that
one
just her
Leslie I
screen name?
know, or maybe 2 Leslies I know. But yeah, that is my mom. Musical influences? I mean, maybe my mom. Maybe my mom in a way, because...
is your mom a musician?
She played the oboe.
Nice.
But I think, she's a photographer and my dad is a graphic designer, and maybe this also links into what we were talking about earlier with like an influence of imagery and stuff as well. Growing up in that environment definitely shaped the way I was engaging with like image stuff, and mainly just I overheard a lot of arguments about fonts in the kitchen. Not bad arguments, but like just, oh, you're going to use impact again? Oh, how dare you? Things like that.
Okay, and so the title, now that I'm getting a clear understanding of what Ning and Laura are doing, is title brought into it after you kind of let them filter the music? Like, are they the mediums in a sense, or is the digital technology the medium?
Yeah, so there's like a play on that word, obviously, and that was something that was like part of, I definitely had the title in mind as I was starting to, do this whole thing. Ning and Laura are kind of like the mediums who are channeling their environment, their sonic environment through their instruments. And then there's another play with mediums, which is like, there's this, that's captured into a film, along with the sounds of the environment, which I then transcribe out to the entire ensemble, featuring Ian and Russell as well. And they also like all those car sounds and all those like percussive sounds. I'm trying to notate what that ends up sounding like for percussion instruments. So yeah, there's another aspect to mediums through that idea as well, just the connection between, sonic visual mediums, and then, live performance as a medium and a genre, and then like, just standalone video as a genre in a medium. So yeah, I think it's a title that bears a lot of relationship to different aspects of the piece.
That's very cool. There is a clip it's Laura performing in front of the FDR. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire video, because for me it was the first time that the background sound seemed to be extremely recognizable in a really beautiful way. So you don't think of the FDR as being musical in any way or sonically pleasing, but there is a moment in the video where she's sitting in the foreground, cars are whipping by her in the background, and it's just lovely. Do we have that clip?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember which one that was? Rob's like, no, we have no idea.
I think
Well-
it's a timestamp.
Rob's
Yeah.
already mad at us.
I think it was
think-
actually.
He is?
I think it was the BQE because we were in
It
Brooklyn
was the
Heights.
BQE, yes,
Yeah.
BQE,
Uh-huh.
yep.
Yeah.
947 in the
947.
the dry video is
Yep.
is where that's from.
Got it.
And I think it should be a little bit later if in the performance video.
Yeah. Here it is.
Here it comes.
Oh, cool.
Boom.
That's so cool.
What's that last building that we just saw? That like school bus depot or something?
It's like a building right across the street from the BQE right there. It's like a little, I don't know, electrical outpost or something.
Oh, okay.
Some city infrastructure
Gotcha.
building.
It's concerning to me that Mark knows all these locations, like he's been there. Like I don't even know what that looks like.
Well, like you, I spend a way too much time. So when I go out with my family, so when my wife and daughter go out, my wife's always like, just try to have a good time. I'm always like, wow, look at this cool building. Let's go down this alleyway. What's over here? Like, I love just exploring space. And so when I see you going to all these, not completely hidden places, but pretty obscure locations, I get really excited because I'm like, oh, I've been there. Oh, or I haven't been there yet. I got to find out where that one was shot. So that's the other piece that I really like about your work is that when the images are involved, it's especially because it's in my own environment. It's like where's Waldo, and that's fun. In encouraging people to go out and find these locations, or at least that's how I took it. Is like, okay, I haven't been there. I need to go check that place out, or find it. That is another element that I find super exciting about the work. Is that it is sound and image, but in some ways encouraging people to get outside and check out these beautiful sounds in spaces that there are around us.
Well, next time we do it, you should dress up like Waldo and be like kind of hidden in the background of everything.
I have the same body type, so I think I just need the stripes.
I can lend you my glasses too, and then I think you'd be set.
This is kind of jumping in. There's a snippet of a video of Ian playing an instrument, and we talked a little bit about it, but I like the clip a lot. And he's playing this thing that looks like one of those things you massage your head with. There's a lot of like metal prongs, and it's supposed to be really relaxing. And I think he's also doing it. I don't know, maybe there's water in the background or something. And that for me was a moment that I was like, okay, what is this instrument? How is it being selected? And what is the conversation between you two? Click all of these metal poles in harmony, or shake it around. Like, what is that? Can we see the clip, and can you guys talk about what that was like? So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a water phone, right?
Yeah, it's Russell's water phone. Is it a bass water phone that you got, or
I think it's called the Whaler.
the Whaler?
Yeah, they all have like very oceanic names. I was just searching for it, but couldn't find it in time.
Yeah. It is. It is a. I remember like it's like trace in the music. Kind of jumping back to your very previous question, Mark. But David's notated like directions for when we do things, and what the printed music looks like doesn't necessarily resemble what the sonic result is. So in this case, I think I'm tracing some contours. David had notated, when to use the bow, like the hair part of the bow, and when to kind of like trace the exterior, and then when to do some clicks on the tines. So I'm kind of just loosely following that contour. And yeah, when the angle changes on that instrument, the water that's in the chamber underneath just moves and subtly changes the sound of it too.
I'm sorry, the instrument you're using has water in it?
Yeah, it kind of looks like two pie dishes welded together with a big spout out the top, and there's some water in that bottom, and it just changes the kind of waving of the water changes the resonance of the instrument in a really kind of cool, unpredictable way.
Mark
And
is
it's
on
used
the
in a
Whaler
lot of-
website right now, like placing an order.
I know. I'm like, and I'm
It's
also
gonna take
wondering
you
what my
5
mom's
months.
thinking right now.
It's a funny instrument because it's called the water phone and has water in it, but I believe the inventor's name is also Water,
His
like
name-
Roger Water or
yeah,
something.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in that instrument, it was used when the imagery on screen was of water. So that was like, I guess that makes sense.
It's a little on the nose. Maybe I should have been less or more subtle about it. But
But not everybody knows that it's called a water phone.
It's true.
mhm.
Or that it uses water.
Right.
So I guess this starts getting into the questions of what this sounds like when played in different venues. So when you're using this water phone, are you able to, when Rush does their guitar riff, that guitar riff sounds exactly the same or pretty darn close to it every single time. When you guys are performing and using kind of obscure instruments and challenging contours, is every performance brand new?
Not totally, I don't think. I mean, like, if we play this, we would need a water phone. And while it's not standard, it's like if you ask for a water phone, you might get the little one, which you hope you don't get. But you might get the really big one, which also you hope you don't get because it's too heavy. But it'll make like that sound. And then for percussion, David wrote for, what do you play? Vibraphone, right, Ian?
Thundersheet. Yeah.
Thundersheet. It's pretty standard stuff. So it might
bass drum.
sound timbrally a little bit different. Like the exact sound of the instruments might be a little bit different. But overall, I think we'd be able to get close to the same sound. And Laura and Ning are, playing a piano and samples, I think, if I'm correct. So yeah, I think we can replicate it. The sound of the hall might be different. And the quality of the projector that we're using might be totally different. If it can get big or small. I remember we had an issue with one of the performances, like it wasn't all encompassing like our first performance it was, and so that changes if it's a little like slide projector style size as opposed to a huge wall behind you.
Overhead projector.
Yeah, they're putting sheets on.
Yeah. So, but those are like, venue specific things. But sonically, I feel like if we had basics, we could, get pretty close.
Yeah.
It's like a small variations each time, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
This piece is closer actually because we're also wedded to the video, so that
That's
the
true. We have a
time
click, right?
frame will be the same. Yeah.
That's true. Some pieces can be shorter and longer. This is like, it's going to be
Exact.
what it is.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, go ahead.
did you have something more important than I was going to say?
Not at all.
I guess my next question is the relationship to audience, because I'm sure that you've played in a a number of venues, maybe indoors and outdoors. I don't actually know. What is the ideal situation for this to be performed in? Like, what is the ideal situation for an audience member to kind of soak it in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would even pose that to the group too. I mean, maybe that was a question for everybody, but I guess for me, like, it's weird. I think with a piece that's about mediums to settle on like a final medium, because I love that everything was kind of like playing with that kind of intermediate space where you kind of weren't sure what was what and what was what. And in a weird way, I kind of left the piece off in that space too, where, like, obviously I wrote it for Yarn Wire. Nobody else could play it other than Yarn Wire. And there's like this fixed video component that features the ensemble. And, that's something that's always present in the performance. And then there's the performance aspect as well. And every venue is going to be different. I also have a version of the video that's just up online, and sometimes I show that just because it's really clear what it's trying to convey. I don't know. I think it ends up in this weird place where it's hard to define like the ideal situation for it. I'm curious because I know Yarn Wire's played the piece in a bunch of different locations. I'm curious about how you engage with that.
I actually have a question about this. Maybe it's related to audience, maybe it's related to performance of the piece. They're kind of intertwined, right? Like, so you do have like the standalone one, which is like the video, which plays throughout that we project, that has both the recorded sound that we've made and the electronic sound, because that's the piece. But then when we play it, we always have to have kind of a dim room, right? So the focus still is on that video, even though there's a live component to it. And it does like kind of sit in this really interesting way where it's like, are we playing a soundtrack? But it's not really that, like there's that possibility. Is it a soundtrack? Is it a live performance of a chamber piece? So all of these questions are always like swirling around. And I feel like, kind of our premiere was in essentially a black box kind of, artist gallery space, and that was kind of ideal because it kind of gets rid of that stage kind of setting, and you can see us easily and you can see that kind of thing. Whereas when we've done it in a proscenium kind of setting, it is a little bit distancing maybe, and maybe the live aspect of it kind of overwhelms as opposed to like being more fused. But then I also think, you said only we could play it, but is that true?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I think there's definitely that point in the presentation where it could be more of like a soundtrack that you're doing, like a live soundtrack. But it's a weird situation, because the people in the film are also on stage. And so it would be like if, Alec Baldwin was playing his own score for his movie or something. And so there's this sense of the performers on the screen being like an avatar of the performers in real life. That's another dimension I think that is explored or created when there's the live performance aspect. And I think that aspect is really cool. That also means that you have to have the projection size okay, because if the person is really small or really big, that could change that dynamic or the suggestions that are kind of coming from that.
But can we no longer play it either because we're like so much older now? What if we're unrecognizable?
Yeah, my hair's so different now.
Or Ian's gonna have a lot of hair one day, and then we're gonna have to redo it. Or actually, no, Ian's not in the video.
Good. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, he's not in.
You took that into account when selecting members.
Yeah.
Who will age?
I always thought of one thing is that, especially from that first performance video from the premiere, that I could basically, this is like a weird third dimension kind of, I could just walk into the screen sort of like to join myself playing, or that self could just come out sort of, you know what I mean? Like,
That's
I know
cool.
it sounds a little creepy, but I've always had that sort of connection, because when I'm performing like the actual piano and keyboard part, I see myself and I know what I'm doing because I experienced that. And so there's that connection that I always thought was very interesting, that I can just go in and out.
And for
I
Ian
think
and I
maybe
think we
that's
don't
the
have that.
ideal. Oh, sorry. Go. Sorry,
No.
Russell. What?
Ian and I think our experience is so different because of we're more not Foley, but kind of musical Foley a little bit,
Yeah.
to what you've done, as opposed to generators of the sound, and having that connection. But Ning, were you also watching The Ring at this time period where you're thinking?
I think what Ning described is probably the ideal version of it in a way. Like the idea that, and maybe that doesn't necessitate like a specific technical thing, but like a feeling of you both kind of getting absorbed or like entering into that portal. And there are certain scenes from the performance video of the premiere where you see someone in the foreground and then you see the background. Maybe we do a green screen version where everyone is just in front of the video.
I love it.
And I
It would
think
be
also,
kind of amazing.
yeah, I mean, I know that Russell and Ian aren't in the video. I mean, the big thing with that was just that the keyboards are like the connection with I feel like that's our connection to their performance there. But I think in a way, like the Foley, which I think is like very central too, it's not like a background thing, that like necessitates the live performance aspect. I mean, having you not in the video almost means that you have to be in the space performing those parts. And I think that's also important.
You didn't want to see me standing in the waves, playing a waterfall
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
super expressively.
Motion capture.
So we're pushing the limits of viewers' attention span. I'm wondering, to kind of round this out, does Yarnwire and David Bird have anything in the works? And if not, will we ever see another collaboration? And if not, does David have anything he's working on? In 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yeah, we'll have to do another version of this, and we'll have to have percussion in some way in the video, I think.
It is always
I'll-
great to work with people, multiple times
That's
on
right.
things.
Yeah, it is.
I
And
always wanted-
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I've always wanted to do another version too, where it does showcase more of your live performance. Maybe it's like a stream, like a live stream when you're in a space doing that performance or something, and we can have multiple, like a Zoom call, but you're all in different.
Well, I feel like now is a perfect time to figure out how to do
we
this,
know how to
a
do
version
that.
of it outdoors.
Mhm.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like as long as everyone's socially distanced, and I mean, I'm sure you could project the sound pretty far, so you can. It could be a really nice thing, so you can actually have the BQE zooming in the background and these kind of other, outdoor noises being a part of the work.
Yeah.
I want to see Ian like pants rolled up in the ocean, kind of getting hit by waves, playing the waterphone.
You got it. You got it.
Long hair.
All right.
Yeah. My mermaid outfit.
But David, you have a record coming out, is that right?
Oh yeah, so I've got a record coming out next Friday. It's called Mirrors. This was like I feel like everyone has their quarantine album, and this is my quarantine album. And it's all me singing in this location, in this dark room, where I just kind of overlay my voice a zillion times and kind of, I'm not a singer, and I'm never going to be a singer. So it seemed like a bizarre kind of challenge for me to make a piece or a whole album based around just sounds of my voice. And so I know that there's probably no way of framing that in like a positive way, because you probably don't want to hear more of my voice after this, but it doesn't sound that bad. It is kind of interesting, I think, at certain points. So
I can
encourage you-
attest. I previewed a couple tracks,
Ooh, I
and
gotta
it sounds
check that.
really, really good. It sounds really cool.
Is it like this?
Yeah. All AMS, whatever that's called.
Unsubscribe. How does one find the record?
You can go to my website. It's davidbird.tv/mirrors, which is the name of the album. Or you can find it probably on Bandcamp. It's going to be streaming too at that point. So just
Awesome.
search my name and Mirrors.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we're
Sweet.
hitting 4 o'clock right now. Thank you. That was really fun. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, David. And thank you all to all the audience who joined us for this hour of exploring David's music.
David's mom and my mom.
Probably my mom too.
The moms. Thank you, the moms, for being there for us. And so I just want to let you know that our next episode will air on October 20th. And we'll have a talk with Mark Fell, who shared the same premiere concert with David's piece. Sorry, was that 2015, David?
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
so.
we have-
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
2015. So please join us for the 20th with Mark Fell. Yeah. And then also, if you can subscribe to our channel and check out our page on Patreon, you can always support Yarnware through Patreon, our Patreon page. And thanks for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.